Today, we're still talking about data. Questions around data security, the manipulation of data, and the use of data to manipulate people's minds in society. What happens with what we see in, for example, the social media these days, whereby algorithms of big companies seem to push up bad news more than good news or neutral news? Like they say, maybe it is indeed true that even as it pertains to algorithms and computers and robots, bad news, no news is good news, so every news is bad news. Some of the big companies around the world in social media have had to be sometimes, accosted by regulators to explain why this is so and why somehow they seem to be making a lot of money from this bad news, sometimes which leads to wars, to conflicts, and so on. In Nigeria today, our current situation as we round up an election is right up that alley. We're seeing a proliferation of bad news, a proliferation of angry news, many of which are actually false. What should be the response of we the people, as well as the government, regulators and co, in this regard? How quick are the regulators on their feet? And how quick are the companies, these behemoths? Do they respond very quickly when people complain to them? And what are the avenues available for people to complain? We're going to be looking at this today. We're also going to be looking a little bit deeper into issues of data literacy, as well as regulation issues, just as we did the other time. And joining me today still is Ms. Aisha Duze, an entrepreneur, management consultant, and a data analyst. Welcome, Aisha.
Thank you very much.
So as you've heard some of the things I've said, in continuation of our discussion the last time, but with a different twist this time, The first part of my discussion, I talked about what is happening right now in our society. The fact that a lot of people actually have become, maybe are getting rich based on people's anger. If you're a very divisive character, you tend to get a lot more followers, and your tweets and your posts on every platform seem to get seen more often, and therefore you're getting all these followers, and perhaps you've monetized your page, you're making money. And of course, the platforms that you're using are also making a lot more money. Yeah. But this is destroying society. However, like we said, we now live in the data age and we have no escape from data. Equally, we don't have any escape from data manipulation. So what do we do as individuals, and what does government do?
Brilliant question. It's the response. Our response to this it has to be multifaceted. And like I mentioned before, I think that the first line of defense will come from us as individuals, as a society, because the government can't do everything for you. We need to get back to the point where we question, what we see, what we listen to, the content we consume. The reason why these people maintain their traffic is because everybody understands that humans are emotional. And that emotional response is what drives the traffic, right? So when you see something that annoys you, before you respond emotionally, ask yourself why this person put this thing out there. Is it true? And even if it were, why is it coming to me now? So before I share, I have to be sure that I am not also just spreading that bad response, the emotional response. I'm spreading the anger. Okay, so what comes out of that anger at the end of the day? It's just a bunch of angry people not able to respond or participate productively in society, right? So that is the extent to which, as individuals, we should, we can contribute. However, there are conversations like around content moderation, and when it's being spoken about, we're talking about the platforms, the owners, the internet companies, so to speak, the platforms, and the role of government. And I think that more can be done to empower the individual to control what it is that they see.
Is it by education or what? Or by,
absolutely.
Or by real tools, whereby you can intervene? For example, like on Twitter. Now, the thing about my own interaction with some of those platforms is that I find it a bit difficult to navigate. If you really wanted to say, on a click, can I report this tweet or can I make a complaint? It's so difficult.
Absolutely, you're right.
What's easier is just for you to push out the tweet, and
it's easier to tweet. Somebody who has a problem with the tweet has to go through several hoops
exactly
to lay a complaint or to get it out of your feed. So yes, education, you know, getting people to know that, look, this is the impact of what this is having on you, on the platform, on society. And then the tools, that's where you now bring in the tools, right?
Yeah.
So enhance the capacity for people to moderate their content. I shouldn't need to jump through hoops to make a report. I shouldn't need to get 1,000 people to retweet to have something that is dangerous taken down. All right. So these are the things that can be improved upon. If you have enough power to delete a tweet of a president, I think that I, as a user of your platform, should also be able to say, look, this is false, it's misleading, and it shouldn't be here longer than it needs to be. I've made a report, you haven't taken it down. I wish to take a further step, you know, and have them respond timely as well, because that's also one of the major challenges.
Exactly.
So that capacity needs to be fixed, you know, in terms of the companies or the internet companies.
Two things come to mind. Is this part of, is it part of data security? Because what we understand about data security may be to the level of cyber security. You mentioned data security, mind goes to cyber security. We're thinking about hackers and all of that. But also the veracity of data, it should also be part of the security of the data. What mere data could cause. For example, we're in a political season in Nigeria, a lot of false information is going around. Today, I shared on my Facebook page, you know, something I saw and I flagged it, that it was false because some political party generated their own very fantastic results, you know, where they probably only the party swept almost everywhere. And they pushed it out. And of course, they also understand that, unfortunately or so, the youth, your young people of today, they are also given to anger. They believe that there's a time to express ourselves. You know, when we were growing up, we were a little bit more chilled out. You knew you had to be in school, you follow the process. You'll be cheated many times, you go on strike, you continue. But now, they're not taking that anymore, and it's very fashionable, you know. But is this also in the realm of data security, or how do we place it?
No, that's different, because data is after it's happened, right?
Okay.
So at this point, you have people putting out the things that will make up data at the end of the day. So we're talking about the ethical use of technology. You know, I would like to put it that way, of social media, right? The people who put that information out there did it for a reason. Okay, you're either trying to distract from the real information, or you're trying to deliberately misinform people and get them to rile them up into action, right? But like we already mentioned, emotions are running rife, and people get up and they're on the streets. Meanwhile, what pushed them is not real. So, a very good thing you did was to flag it and say, look, this is false. The next step, is where I can say the government can come in, and there has to be a quick response, right? So something has been flagged. We have, for example, some authority or a body that has been saddled with the responsibility of handling content moderation. Immediately you flagged it, you escalate to them and say this and this has happened. There will be repercussions. Swiftly, because you're talking of technology now. If you're not acting fast enough,
exactly,
there's no point in it, right? So there has to be.
That it's always evolving.
Exactly. So we have our own responsibility as people, and then that's when you can now say, okay, the government can come in and say, this person put out false information. I have flagged it as false. I'm escalating it to your handle, for you to take the corrective action or corrective measure, as the case may be.
Thank you very much. And the last time we were discussing here on data literacy, you did say that there were steps that the government could take, or maybe other aspects of data literacy, or steps that could be taken to deepen data literacy or to enhance it in society.
Yes. So when it comes to data itself, or data analysis, there are 4 levels of data analysis, right? So you have the descriptive, which simply takes what is already existing and just describes what's happened. You have diagnostic. Why did it happen, right? And then you have predictive.
Okay.
This is why it happened, and this is what is likely to happen in future. Prescriptive, how do we prevent? So do this to prevent.
Yeah.
Now, for the most part, a lot of what we have going on is simply descriptive.
Well, yeah, okay.
A lot of what we have going on at all levels, even in the private sector, you know, analysts, a lot of analysts that I meet, a lot of them are still working on that descriptive level of managing or using data. I'll say using data because, you know, and so we need to be able to move to the diagnostics. We have a lot of data. You have your NIN, you have your BVN, you have so much data, you know, lying around, and we could do diagnostic and find out, okay, why are people not spending on this, or why do we have so many people out of work, for example, today, or, you know, so many things we can do to be, you know, to move to that diagnostic level. And we actually have people who are trained, who are learning the skills right now, but they're not able to use it simply because there's just not that shift to the diagnostic, then the predictive and prescriptive, right? So the essence of data literacy in all of this now is to enlighten, to have people be aware that, look, we have this data, we can use it in more ways than one. Okay. And in the public sector, this is how we can put it to use, and these are the skills that would need to be sharpened, you know, for us to use it adequately. We have had initiatives where you have people coming from, I think it's Code for Africa, had some collaboration with the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics to improve the way they use their data and, you know, put it out, the analytics, you know, so it's a case where the government needs to have people looking at data as a resource. Exactly. As a resource. It's not, if you have automation of these processes, it's not putting you out of work. Rather, it's making your work easier for you. It's giving you a chance to advance as an individual. Simply because you've been doing it manually doesn't mean you cannot learn a certain skill related to data to empower you to do even better, right? So it's for the public sector, I think that it's time that we begin to grow a data-driven culture. Take data from simply being descriptive to diagnostic all the way to predictive. Let's begin to apply it, you know, to shaping the future of the country, not just looking at what has happened in the past and throwing up the problems.
Thank you for that. You know, but what do we do to enlighten people of the fact that, look, people need to understand that data is money, and therefore, one of the things you do with money is you store money, right? So there seems to still be a lot of data being dissipated in Nigeria, you know, as if we don't know what to do with them or something. Because again, this is also going to guide planning, you know, on a macro level. In 1 minute, and then we go for a break.
I don't know about data being dissipated. There's certain types of data that you really wouldn't have access to, even if you want to use it ethically. But data can't just make money for you just sitting there. You have to put in the work, right? Get your analysts working, get your data scientists working. But before you do that, you have to define for yourself, what do you intend to achieve with this data? And that is what will make a difference. That's what's going to guide you which way to go. What do we want to achieve? Exactly. What do we want to achieve in agric? What do we want to achieve in education?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm just thinking, for example, is anyone Is anyone, collating, let's say, even on the agri, production of farmers and so on, in a very good way that can be stored and used later? But we'll continue after this short break. Welcome back. And we've been still discussing issues of around data security, data literacy, data governance, and so on and so forth. So we've been with, we're still with our guest, Ms. Aisha Duze. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
Before we went on break, we were exploring some areas regarding still the subject of data literacy and what needs to be done. But perhaps let's talk about data governance and the steps required, for us to have better data governance in Nigeria, and what are the possibilities? I want you to educate, the public and myself, being an expert in the field. What are the possibilities in this area? What can it add? Let's even think about what it can add to our GDP. If indeed data is the new money, what should we be doing in terms of better governance, better appreciation of the issues on ground? And so on, and how do we catch up with the rest of the world? And perhaps you want to also let us know what the rest of the world is doing already.
Thank you very much. So let me see, where do I start? Data governance, I believe I touched on it last time, and it simply is a set of rules that guide how people use data.
Okay.
So organizations and governments, how they use data. And there are certain guiding principles of data governance which must follow through at any level of data governance. Now, you're talking about accountability, integrity, transparency, accessibility, collaboration, continuous improvement. Now, as far as Nigeria is concerned, we have the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation of 2019. Not just that, we have quite a number of bills and policy and regulations that are in existence already, regarding data and its use. What we really need to do at this point is just the implementation.
Okay. The rules are there and not being
implemented. They are there.
Is there rules, for example, surrounding how people use other people's data that's in their care, how companies use information of their staff, stuff like that, how they keep it even?
All of that.
Sometimes, in fact, this morning I saw somebody's certificate. Someone's, what kind of certificate? Maybe that was an INEC certificate that was being used to sell suya. And,
So you see,
do people understand that they cannot just throw someone's certificate? Someone applies to you, for example, to be employed in your company. You say, bring your CV. The person brings their CV, their NYC certificate, even if it was copies.
Yeah.
And when you were tired of keeping the heaps, you sell it to a suya seller.
Yes.
And there they are on the streets. Somebody is using someone's certificate. You have information management or information control. Those rules have always been there, and privacy protection and what have you. Those laws have always been in existence. It still boils down to the enforcement, right? Because organizations and companies, they always have their information management manuals. They'll tell you, oh, we keep these records for so long. This is how we're supposed to dispose of them. When that is not done, somebody has to be held accountable. Yeah. And that person isn't held accountable. Hence, you have somebody's CV in the streets, and that person doesn't know. So that person can't even complain or escalate. Right. So the responsibility at the end of the day will fall down to that person within that organization who is responsible for disposing of this. Exactly. But you see, when we're talking now about digital information, data that is being kept stored digitally,
there is legislation, that addresses that. Even the NDPR itself speaks to that. So you have the owner, the authorizer, the user, and what have you. And there are certain strict criteria that must be met before data is released to you. You cannot use it within, to do certain things. If you do that, there will be, there are repercussions, right? And so it's not so much the rules. The laws are there. The policies guidelines are there.
Before you address the other issues around how it can impact the economy, something else occurred to me, which I think I would want to tap your brains on. Our phones are treasure troves of data.
Yes.
Okay? Phone numbers,
your text messages,
the sites WhatsApp messages, the sites you visit, you have if you're going to use Uber or
location
whatever,
data, yes.
Your location data must be on. So someone can tell where you've been. And these days we find out that these criminal boys, really, when they take your phone these days, they don't care whether it's iPhone, whatever. They are not interested they're interested in your data. Almost everybody has information about their BVN on their data, on their phone.
Yes.
If you haven't saved it directly as BVN, you may have texted it to someone, or your mobile app.
If using your mobile app, it can be accessed.
Exactly, your mobile app, and there are some codes they can type onto your phone.
Absolutely, yes, there's access to that.
Your BVN, your NIN, your everything. Is there any hope? And what do we do? How do we circumvent this issue? If somebody gets hold of your phone, they have a lot of your data, and with the little of your data they have, they can still call around and corroborate the rest.
Yes.
And everybody has their text from their bank coming onto these phones. That your alert that will show them how much money you have.
At that level, at that point, at this level of data security, honestly, the responsibility is largely individual. Right? So and these devices actually come with a lot of, so you can, I know that for some devices, you have a means of a code you can dial so that it locks it down completely. I don't use an iPhone, but I know that they have something where you can actually shut down that device, but the person can't do anything with it. They can extract information, you have your passcode. Some of us have our devices thumbprint or Face ID protected. So you also have your own role to play, to that extent. Protect your device, make sure that someone who randomly, unless they are, they force you to open it, but someone who picks your device can't access certain things. They can't, for example, use my dial pad, my keypad without, when it's locked, right? And before they can unlock it, there would be a certain amount of time that would be required, within which I should be able to use another device and lock my device or render it completely useless. So there's that level of personal responsibility. When it comes to data being stored, by organizations or publicly, they also have that responsibility to protect your information, right? Because it's your personal information. It is valuable to you. It is also valuable to them, which is why they're keeping it, right? So they have to make sure that that information is stored safely, that whoever they're giving access to meets the certain requirements. We have, advancements coming up in terms of how people use data for machine learning, for example, right? So we did discuss about something called differential privacy, where people can use little bits of information or little bits of data to throw it into existing data to obscure people's identity. So that, say, for example, something like a phone number, you can either just blur it out completely, because that leads directly to that person. But something like your general zip code, for example, you can throw in something there and say a green tree or a red tree, right? So whoever sees that information, when it's being used for whatever purpose it's being used for, there is nothing that leads it back directly to the individual or to the entity that owns that data. So that is one way that you can help keep people secure. But on the larger scale of it, really, it's just the regulations, again, I say, are there. You have the GDPR, you have regional governments coming up with their own, you have national governments coming up with their own. It's the implementation and enforcement at the end of the day that keeps people safe. So I will do my part as an individual to keep my information off the public space. Taking a photo by a vehicle, blur out the plate number, because even if it's not your car, you're putting somebody else's information out there. Blur out stuff like the house numbers, things like that. So education plays a huge role, right, in how we put out information, how we manage the information that is around us. Everything really, literally is information these days.
Fantastic. Now, what's your imagination around how an adherence to this data science and better use of it can enhance our economy in Nigeria? Imagination, just I know it's a bit of a tough thing to imagine.
It's you know, people are doing it already, right? You're taking data like NIN, for example, which more Nigerians, I would imagine more Nigerians have a NIN than have a BVN.
Absolutely.
Right?
In fact, the number, I was researching it just a couple of days back. NIN, we have about 90 million. BVN, we have 56 million.
Absolutely. So let's say, for example, we're looking at unemployment levels, right? What are the figures showing us in terms of unemployment levels? How is unemployment looking across the age groups?
Yeah.
And then at that point, you can see the descriptive. You begin to diagnose why are we having, you know, what exactly is it localized to a certain region? What are the figures saying about so region? The levels of education, right? Now, when you're able to use data in that manner, right, you are now looking at providing solutions, isn't it? And you're providing solutions, meaning that you're creating jobs for people.
Right.
Because you have to solve the problem of, say, unemployment. You're creating jobs, you're improving the economy. Somebody has to come and get that work done, isn't it? Somebody has to come and look at, how certain health challenges are more dominant within a certain age range or within a certain gender, right? So you have to process that information. You have to turn it into insights. You have to turn it into roadmaps, so to speak, for solutions before we can make anything off of it. So at whatever level, if it is the government says, okay, look, we've identified this problem and this is what looks like a solution for us. Are you a solution provider? You're already right there, you're creating jobs for certain groups of people who are able to provide those solutions.
It would be good for us to put out good data good, especially on our population.
Exactly.
Because it's going to affect a whole lot of things.
Lot of people.
All of a sudden, you see that the so-called 133 million people that they say are in poverty in Nigeria may not exist.
The budget might not be as...
Exactly, and so on. Exactly. Very, very key. Thank you very much, Aisha.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much, viewers, for staying with us so far. It's been a pleasure. See you next week.